Dear soul, take a moment to listen, for the angels are gently connecting with your energy to reveal what has been hidden for far too long. Did they truly believe you had already moved on, that your heart had let go and the connection had faded into silence? But last night, in the quiet, something shifted. They finally spoke the truth they've been carrying in silence for years, a truth they were once too afraid to say aloud. And now, heaven has decided that this moment, right here, is when it must come to light. The angels have stepped forward in today's message to lovingly reveal this confession. Are you ready, dear one, to hear the words that were never spoken until now? Dear child, the angels have waited patiently for this moment because they knew there would come a time when the weight of unspoken truths would finally tremble loose from the lips that once chose silence over sincerity. The person who hurt you, who let distance grow where closeness once bloomed, who walked away while pretending they didn't look back, this soul has carried a private storm inside them for far longer than anyone imagined. They acted as though your absence didn't leave a scar, as if watching you heal from afar didn't cost them something irretrievable. But heaven saw the moment their heart finally broke under the quiet pressure of their own regret. It wasn't pride that kept them from returning all this time, dear child. It was shame. It was fear. It was the realization that they had misunderstood the value of what they walked away from, and by the time they understood it, they believed it was too late. And yet, last night, in a moment they didn't plan and couldn't control, something sacred happened. Your name slipped from their heart to their lips, trembling and raw. Not out of habit or nostalgia, but from a place so deep and honest. Even they didn't expect it. And when they finally admitted what they'd been hiding, that they never truly stopped loving you, that they never healed from the choices they made, something in the heavens shifted. A quiet ripple moved through the divine, and the angels leaned in closer, because this confession was not just about love. It was about awakening, about soul recognition, about the unbreakable bond they tried so hard to ignore. Type Amen if you trust in God. Dear child, you were never forgotten. You were never a chapter they closed and moved on from. Even when they pretended not to see you in passing, even when they laughed too loudly or spoke of others too quickly, their heart was aching for what they never had the courage to fully receive from you, your depth, your devotion, your truth. They mistook your gentleness for naivety, your loyalty for simplicity, not realizing until far too late that what you offered was rare, sacred, eternal, and the angels are showing that this person has been haunted not by your silence, but by the way you never tried to hurt them back. You walked away with dignity, even when your soul was screaming. You chose peace over retaliation, and that silence, that grace, became the loudest mirror to their mistakes. And now, in private moments that no one else sees, they are speaking to your memory. Not with anger, but with tears, with longing, with aching apologies that cannot always be spoken aloud, but which are real nonetheless. This soul has learned that love is not about possession, or power, or proving a point. It's about presence. It's about the courage to stay when things feel uncertain. And now they are remembering every moment you gave your presence freely, when you showed up, even when they didn't ask, when you waited with patience, even when they didn't deserve it, when you held their name in your heart with reverence, even after they shattered your trust. They know this now. They feel it in every quiet corner of their life, in the places where laughter used to echo and now silence sits, in the faces they meet who remind them of you, but never match your energy. They are beginning to understand that you were not someone they met. You were someone they were sent. And by turning away, they didn't just lose a relationship, dear child. They lost their divine chance. And heaven, in its grace, allowed them to feel the full gravity of that loss, not to punish them, but to awaken them, to soften the parts of their heart that had become hardened by ego, pride, and fear. But now, beloved, the angels turn to you. They ask gently, "Are you ready to hear this truth without allowing it to reopen wounds you've already worked so hard to heal? Are you strong enough to witness their sorrow without abandoning the peace you have fought to find within yourself? Because this moment, this confession, is not just about them. It's also about you, about how far you've come, about the light you chose to grow in, even when darkness surrounded you, about the forgiveness you gave without ever receiving a thank you, about the way you rose, quietly, powerfully, with the kind of strength heaven celebrates. You did not lose them, dear child. You were protected from a version of them that wasn't yet ready to cherish what you carried. And while they've been learning through longing, you have been rising through restoration. Your tears were not wasted. They watered the soil of your soul, and from that sacred place, something new has begun to bloom. And now heaven asks, will you open your heart again, not necessarily to them, but to the truth that you were always worthy of being chosen first, not last, not as an afterthought, but as the sacred soul you are. Let their confession be what it is, a mirror, not a map. A mirror to how deeply you were loved, even if they didn't know how to show it then. But not a map that tells you to retrace your steps. You don't need to walk backwards to validate your journey forward. If they return, let it be with honor, with humility, with a readiness to hold your heart with both hands, and not just with trembling words. Because you, dear child, are no longer standing where they left you. You have changed, you have healed, you have remembered your worth, and that memory is something even the heavens have recorded. So take this message not as a door reopening, but as a window of clarity. A divine glimpse into a truth you always sensed but never heard aloud. Let their honesty bring closure if it must, or reunion if heaven wills. But above all, let it remind you that love, real love, is not something you chase. It is something you become. And you, beloved, have already become it. You are the proof that even the deepest wounds can become sacred spaces of growth. And now, you stand in your power, with angels around you, whispering what they have always known, that you were never too much, never too sensitive, never too soft. You were just more awakened than they were ready to receive. And now that they finally see the truth, let that vision free you, not bind you. If this message found its way to your heart today, it is because heaven wanted you to know that nothing spoken in truth is ever lost in silence. It may have taken years for their heart to speak what you already knew, but your soul was never mistaken. The love was real, the loss was real, and so too is the light that now surrounds you. You are being guided into a season where you no longer have to wonder what could have been, because what is meant to find you will arrive in its highest form, without confusion, without delay, without conditions. And if this person must be part of your story again, they will return not as someone who needs your forgiveness, but as someone who already knows how sacred your presence is. So breathe, dear child. Rest in this divine truth. You are seen, you are remembered, and you are already walking in the light that was meant for you all along. Let peace settle in your spirit. and let the angels carry this message deep into your soul. The past may have shaped you, but it no longer defines you. You are being called forward. And this time, you are not waiting for anyone to catch up. This time, you are leading the way. Dear child, heaven is now unsealing a sacred truth that was once buried in silence, tucked away in the quiet corners of a heart that pretended it had forgotten you. But it never did. And now, the moment has come when the divine light has finally reached a soul who once turned away from you with eyes that refused to see clearly, and lips that stayed shut even as love tried to speak. That person, the one who watched you walk away and convinced themselves that you had moved on, that you were fine, that your life no longer had room for the echo of their name. That soul has just awakened. Last night, something broke within them, not in pain alone, but in clarity. It was as if heaven held a mirror to their spirit, and for the first time in years, they saw what they had been running from. They saw you, not the version they tried to forget or reduce to a memory, but the real you. The sacred soul who once tried to make a home in their heart. The one who loved without conditions. The one whose presence brought light into rooms they didn't even realize were dark. And suddenly, all the walls they had built around their feelings could no longer hold the weight of the truth they had buried inside. They spoke your name, not just once, not in passing. They whispered it as if saying it would bring back the time they lost. They admitted the very thing they had denied for so long, that the safest, most peaceful feeling they ever knew was when they were with you. Type, I believe, if you believe in God's plan. Dear child, do you understand what this means? That the joy you once offered, the sanctuary you built for them within your soul, the dreams you carried for both of you, all of it still lives within them. They may have walked away from the relationship, but the memory of your love stayed, etched like sunlight into the deepest walls of their being. And now they long to return to something they once thought they didn't need, only to discover it was the only place they ever truly felt seen. They think of your voice, the way it softened even their harshest days. They remember how you noticed the little things, how you made even the ordinary feel sacred. The angels show that they now realize you were not just a partner in passing, not just a season in their life, but the soul they were meant to grow with, celebrate with, and build with. You represented a kind of emotional homecoming, one they didn't know they needed until they stood in the ruins of everything else and found only your memory standing untouched. Heaven wants you to understand that this confession comes not just from regret, but from transformation. They have begun to change, to awaken, to understand the meaning of stability, commitment, and spiritual unity. And though they may not have the perfect words to explain all they feel, what they are finally realizing is that you were never meant to be a fleeting joy. You were meant to be a foundation, their safe place, their peace. You see, dear child, true love doesn't just make the heart race, it makes the soul rest. And that's what you did for them. You brought them rest, laughter, joy, celebration. You were the reason their spirit felt alive. And now, all these years later, that realization has become impossible to deny. But beloved, as they face this divine truth, heaven also turns to you. The angels wrap you gently in their wings and remind you of how much you've grown in the quiet. You were not standing still while they stayed silent. You were rising, evolving, learning to hold your own heart with both hands. You built sacredness within yourself, planted gardens in places where they once left you barren. The strength you carry now is not just survival, it's radiance. And while their confession may stir old emotions, the angels ask you not to forget who you've become. Their truth is not meant to undo your healing. It's meant to illuminate the love that was always real, even if it was once misheld. If they return, it must not be to the person you were when they left. It must be to the glorious soul you've become in their absence. You are no longer waiting for someone to choose you. You are the one who chooses, wisely, sacredly, with discernment born of pain that has now become wisdom. So, dear child, let this divine message settle deeply in your soul. You were always the light, the joy, the celebration, the soul that turned a fragile connection into something eternal. The one who offered love not just as a word, but as a way of being. And now, the one who once took that for granted is finally seeing it for what it truly was, a divine gift they were too blind to receive. They thought you had moved on, and in many ways, you have, but not in the way they feared. You've moved forward, not away. You've stepped into your power, not out of love. And if the universe brings this soul back into your path, it will be not for you to lose yourself again, but for you to see what your love helped awaken in someone who was once lost. Let them speak. Let them confess. Let them unfold their truth without interrupting the peace you've built. And know that even if you do not choose to open the same door again, it does not mean the love was wasted. It means it fulfilled its purpose. It awakened what needed to be seen. It helped heal what needed to break. Heaven has orchestrated this moment not to reopen old wounds, but to shine light on the love you gave so unconditionally. Let their words be what they are, a mirror of what you already knew, a validation of your spirit's knowing, a holy echo of the truth your heart carried all along. You were never wrong to love them. You were never foolish to believe in what you felt. You simply saw what they could not yet see. And now, as their eyes finally open, the heavens celebrate your endurance, your grace, your light. Because you, dear child, were the sanctuary all along, the celebration, the safe place. And nothing, not time, not silence, not absence, has ever changed that truth. You are loved, seen, and remembered. And now finally the voice that once stayed silent has spoken the truth. The question now, dear child, is not whether they are ready. It is whether you are still willing to receive what they've only just begun to understand. Heaven stands beside you, no matter what you choose, because you have already chosen yourself. And that, beloved, is the most sacred union of all. Dear child, there are moments in the divine story of your life where the truth does not arrive suddenly like lightning, but slowly, like a flower opening under the weight of years. And this is one of those moments. The angels have watched in quiet reverence as a seed once planted, through love, through patience, through your silent prayers, finally begins to break the surface. What seemed forgotten was never lost. What appeared silent was never empty. A soul that once turned away, pretending that what they felt for you had vanished, has now been brought face to face with the truth they've buried under layers of time, pride, and distraction. They had convinced themselves that you had moved on, that your absence meant closure, that you had found peace elsewhere and would no longer be affected by their silence. But last night, dear child, that illusion crumbled. Heaven stirred something deep within them. And in the stillness of night, when the world was quiet and the truth had no more places to hide, they spoke your name with a tenderness they hadn't felt in years. They admitted what they thought they could carry to their grave, that they never stopped wondering about you, never stopped hoping you were happy, never truly stopped loving you. Type strong if you trust in God's presence. This confession was not born of sudden impulse, but of a slow, sacred ripening. A realization that crept in over time as they lived through seasons that never quite felt whole without your presence. They've looked back often, more than you know, at moments you shared, words you said, silences you kept, and the way you stayed true even when everything around them was uncertain. They've watched others come and go from their life and still found themselves measuring every connection against the memory of your soul. Because, dear child, your energy was never temporary. It was never shallow. It was planted like a sacred seed in the deepest soil of their being, and though they tried to cover it with distractions and denial, it continued to grow, slowly, quietly, and now, as the heavens lift the veil, they are finally able to admit what they've felt all along. They didn't lose you, they let you go, believing they had time, believing perhaps you'd return when they were more ready, more whole, more deserving. But as the days passed and the seasons turned, they realized the ache they carried was not loneliness. It was the absence of you. Dear child, the angels want you to know that your patience, your endurance, your ability to love without needing to control has not gone unnoticed. You never chased, you never begged, you simply let them go with grace, even when your heart cracked under the weight of silence. You planted love with no guarantee of its return, and still, you loved. That kind of love, heaven says, is not weak. It is divine. It is the kind that echoes across lifetimes and brings souls back into alignment when the timing is right. And now, that timing has arrived. The one who once misunderstood your worth has begun to see it with painful clarity. They may not know how to approach you. They may fear your rejection, or worry that your heart is no longer open to them. But even in that fear, they are praying, quietly, humbly, that somehow, some way, you will feel what they cannot yet say aloud, that their love, though delayed, is real, that their confession, though late, is sacred, and that their soul has been transformed by the love you gave so freely, so unconditionally, without ever asking for anything but honesty in return. Now the angels turn their gaze toward you, beloved, and they whisper a gentle reminder. This is not about whether you take them back or whether the story begins again. This is about honoring the divine timing of truth, about seeing how your strength allowed something once broken to find its way toward healing. You were not forgotten. You were not replaced. You were remembered, in silence, in solitude, in the spaces where their heart was too afraid to go. And now, your name is being spoken not as a regret, but as a revelation. You are the truth they buried beneath pride. You are the peace they lost in pursuit of distraction. And you are the one who, even in your absence, continued to guide them toward becoming a version of themselves they could finally be proud of. This message from heaven is not a promise of what will come, but a celebration of what has already happened in the unseen. Your love, once dismissed, has awakened a soul. Your patience has softened a heart. Your silence has become the most powerful echo in their spirit. And now, dear child, you are free to receive this truth without needing to carry the weight of it. You are not responsible for what they do with their awakening. You are only asked to recognize that your love mattered, that your heart was never foolish for believing, that your waiting was not in vain. You created something holy, and heaven has honored it, even when earth forgot. So rest in this knowing. You are the harvest of all you've planted, not just in their heart, but in your own. You've become more whole, more radiant, more in tune with your divine self. And whether their path crosses yours again or not, you have already won something priceless. You have grown without bitterness. You have risen with grace. And now, the universe opens new doors for you, not because you waited, but because you believed. Not because they've returned, but because you never left yourself. You stayed true to your soul, and now all of heaven celebrates the truth that can no longer be hidden. You are seen, you are cherished, and you are already surrounded by the blessings that your love made room for long before this confession was ever spoken aloud. Dear child, the angels gather close to you now, surrounding you in a hush so soft it could only be born from heaven's deepest reverence. For something sacred has been stirred in the quiet. A truth that has long slumbered in silence has finally risen from the shadows, and it carries with it not just a confession, but a healing. The person who once walked away, who disappeared behind walls of stillness, who left without a map or explanation, believed that time would erase the depth of what you once shared. They thought perhaps you had already moved on, that you had tucked them away like an old letter folded into the pages of a life they no longer belonged to. But what they didn't understand, dear child, is that love like yours cannot be discarded, nor silenced, nor forgotten. It does not simply disappear because the world grows louder. It lingers, it transforms, and it waits for divine timing, for soul awakening, for hearts to finally become quiet enough to hear what was always whispering beneath the noise. Type 111 if you trust in your guardian angels. For so long, this person sat in stillness, but not peace. They lived their days surrounded by people who never truly knew them, by distractions that dulled the ache but never cured it. Every time your name passed through their memory, they felt something stir that they couldn't quite name, a longing that refused to rest. They told themselves they were fine. They told others it was over. But deep within, their soul had not moved. It had paused, dear child, in the very place where you left your love. And while the world moved forward, they remained spiritually frozen in a moment they didn't know how to revisit, a moment where they felt seen in a way no one else has ever replicated. It wasn't until last night, in the sacred stillness of nightfall, that the truth finally broke through. And not with grand speeches or rehearsed words, but in a quiet, tear-soaked confession whispered into the dark. They spoke your name not to recall the past, but to admit to heaven that they had never truly let you go. That the love they once claimed was confusing was actually the most honest feeling they've ever known. That the peace they seek has never been found since your departure. That their heart still aches in the places where your light once lived. And now, beloved, heaven turns this sacred moment toward you, asking gently, are you ready to receive what was too heavy for them to carry all these years? Can you open your spirit not just to what they confessed, but to what it cost them to finally say it? Because while you were learning to rest, to breathe, to heal in the soft spaces of your own life. They were wrestling with shadows. They lay awake on nights when no one else knew their torment, thinking about the way your voice made them feel understood, the way your presence never asked them to perform, only to be. And it terrified them then. Your ability to see through them so clearly, your love that didn't need a reason, your patience that waited without pride. But now, it is that same love that is calling them home, not necessarily to your door, but to the truth they can no longer avoid. The angels want you to understand, dear child, that your absence became their teacher. In the silence you left behind, they heard the echo of their own soul's cry. They realized that what they once thought was quiet was actually their own emptiness speaking. And they now understand that the stillness they thought was peace was actually the pause before a storm of truth. This confession that has now come forth is not just about missing you. It is about recognizing you as the safe place they never knew how to honor, the divine presence they were not ready to receive. And though they may approach with humility or remain at a distance out of fear, the angels assure you that their heart is fully awake now. They finally see what they had, and they are grieving not only the loss of your presence, but the version of themselves who could not see clearly when it mattered most. But oh, sweet child, you must also see how much beauty has been born in the quiet. The silence they left behind became the sanctuary where your spirit returned to itself. In their absence, you did not crumble. You rebuilt. You grew. You learned to be your own comfort, your own home. You learned to listen to your body, to the soft nudges of spirit, to the whispers of your angels when the world felt too harsh. You discovered your strength not in noise, but in peace. And now, as they confess what you always suspected, that their love never ended, that their heart never moved on, the question becomes not, do you believe them? But do you still need their words to validate what your soul already knew? Heaven wants you to know that your love was not wasted. Your waiting was not in vain. Your stillness, your tears, your quiet prayers spoken when no one saw, all of it mattered. It moved something divine. It shaped the energy around you. And now the person who once vanished into silence has returned to it not to hide, but to heal. Because in your presence they were faced with truth, and in your absence they were faced with themselves. And both were necessary. Both were holy. Both were part of a greater divine unfolding that only heaven could orchestrate. So take this message, dear child, and hold it gently. Do not rush to fix or answer or reopen wounds that have already closed with sacred gold. Let the confession be what it is, a symbol of how powerful your presence has always been, a mirror reflecting the quiet strength you've carried, a reminder that your love was never a mistake, only a miracle they were not yet ready for. And now that they have spoken, let yourself rest in this knowing, that love always returns to its source, that silence is never empty when it is held by angels, and that your soul has always been heard, even when no one else was listening. You are being blessed not just with truth, but with clarity, not just with confession, but with freedom. And whether or not this soul finds their way back to you, heaven wants you to walk forward with your heart unburdened. Because the truth has found its way to the surface, and it has only confirmed what your angels have whispered all along. You are deeply loved, eternally protected, and finally, gloriously seen. Dear child, heaven has watched every step of your quiet journey, the one you took not with loud declarations, but with unshakable inner strength. There was a time when your love for someone was steady, wide, and open, like a sacred road you had cleared for them with your own hands. You waited. You believed. You stood in stillness when everything inside you longed to move forward with them. But they, beloved, turned away, not because your love wasn't real, but because they didn't yet know how to walk beside someone who carried such divine light. They mistook your sincerity for intensity, your devotion for vulnerability, and your consistency for something they had time to return to later. And so they left, either physically or emotionally, and you were left with questions that echoed in your heart like thunder in a hollow sky. But you did not collapse. You did not beg. You gathered every shattered piece of yourself and rose, not out of anger, but out of grace. You chose to keep walking, not to prove anything, but because your spirit knew that love cannot wait forever in a place where it is no longer seen. Type guided if you trust in God's guidance. And now, dear child, the angels are showing something miraculous. That soul who once left you behind has been on their own journey. A path filled not with triumph, but with quiet battles, with moments where they looked strong to the world, but were falling apart inside. They chased distractions. They buried their truth under responsibility, fear, ego, and denial. They told themselves you had probably moved on, that you were living a peaceful life far from their memory. But last night, something shifted. Heaven opened a window in their soul, and through it came a light they hadn't felt in years, the memory of you. Not a casual recollection, but an overwhelming flood of emotion they could no longer contain. And in that moment, they finally confessed to the one presence who would never judge them. To God, to the universe, to their own soul, they admitted that they never truly stopped loving you. That they have spent years trying to outrun a love that only grew stronger in the silence. That no matter how far they went, your energy was the compass they could not turn away from. And heaven, in its infinite grace, chose this moment to bring that hidden truth into the light, not to hurt you, but to free both of you. This is not just a confession of love, dear child. This is a revelation of transformation. Because the soul that once left you in silence is no longer the same. They have been humbled by the storms of life. They have realized that speed means nothing without direction, and that every road they've taken has led them back to the thought of you. But now, the question isn't just whether they've changed. It is whether you still desire to open your heart to someone who had to lose you to see your worth. And that is a question only your spirit can answer. Not from longing, but from wisdom. Because while they were searching, you were growing. While they were denying, you were healing. While they were silent, you were praying, learning, expanding. And now you stand in a new place. You are no longer who you were when they left. You have become something radiant, something rooted, something sacred. The angels want you to know that what comes next is not about rewriting the past. It is about claiming your future. Their return, or even their distant confession, is not meant to confuse you, but to clarify how powerful your love has always been. You didn't have to chase them. Your energy walked ahead of them, clearing paths they didn't even know were overgrown. And now, they are following the light you left behind. Not because they want to relive what was, but because they finally understand what it was meant to become. You were the stable force in a world that demanded they be unsteady. You were the truth in a world that taught them to lie. You were the calm in a soul that had only known chaos. And now they are ready, not to take from you, but to honor you. To walk beside you, to match your pace, to meet your eyes without flinching, because they have been reshaped by the very silence they once tried to escape from. But the choice, dear child, will never belong to them alone. It is yours. Do you wish to reopen your heart to a love that once faltered? Or do you wish to keep walking into the future you've begun to build on your own? Either path is divine. Either choice is honored. Because heaven has already witnessed your courage, your patience, and your unwavering capacity to love without losing yourself. You do not owe them a response. You owe yourself the peace of knowing you are deeply, unconditionally loved by the divine. And if this person is meant to re-enter your life, they will arrive with humility, consistency, and the kind of respect that your soul has always deserved. They will not come rushing in with promises. They will move slowly, steadily, in step with your healing, in harmony with your spirit. And if they don't come at all, you will still have won, because you loved in truth. You let go with grace, and you moved forward without abandoning the hope that love would one day find its way home, whether through them or through someone new. So breathe, dear child. Let this angel message hold you like a quiet song. Let the winds of heaven carry this truth deep into your bones. You were never forgotten. You were always the destination, even when they didn't know which road to take. And now, their soul remembers. And your soul is free. Whether you walk together again or not, this chapter is not about regret. It is about revelation. And the most important truth of all is this: you are no longer walking alone. Heaven walks with you now, hand in hand, step by step, straight into the future you were born to create. Dear child, the angels have opened the book of memory tonight, and a page is turning, one that was never truly closed, only paused in silence. The soul you once poured your heart into, the person who once danced on the edge of your light yet never stepped fully into it, has just spoken a truth that could not stay buried any longer. They thought you had moved on. They assumed the warmth you offered had faded, that the home you built in your heart for them had crumbled in their absence. But what they never saw, what only heaven could witness, was the quiet hope that still flickered inside you, not because you were waiting, but because real love doesn't vanish. It transforms. And now, under the gentle gaze of angels and with heaven as their witness, that soul has finally let their truth rise, a truth that has lived behind their smiles, their distractions, their attempts to forget, a truth that says, I never stopped seeing you as home. Type 222 if you trust in God's word. Yes, dear child, home. That is what you were to them, even when they didn't have the words to say it or the courage to stay. When you loved them, it wasn't with conditions. It wasn't out of need. You didn't offer them just romance or conversation. You offered sanctuary. You gave them a feeling of belonging they couldn't explain. You gave them comfort, not only in their brightest moments, but in their quietest, loneliest hours. And now, all these years later, that truth has found them again. Not in a loud realization, but in a soft, holy moment when their heart finally broke open and saw clearly. They remembered the peace of your presence, the way your voice made chaos still, the way you saw through their confusion and still chose to stay a while. And as they sat with those memories, they whispered a confession, not to the world, but to the heavens. They admitted that nothing has felt quite right since you left. No celebration has felt complete. No relationship has reached that sacred depth. because what you offered them wasn't temporary, it was a foundation. And now, beloved, the angels turn gently to you with a question. Are you ready to know this truth? Are you ready to hold it not as a rope pulling you back into the past, but as a light revealing how deeply your presence has impacted a soul? Because while they were learning through absence, you were learning through presence. You showed up for yourself. You chose growth over grief. You chose to believe that your love mattered, even when the silence tried to convince you otherwise. And heaven rejoiced in your resilience. You didn't build walls. You built inner sanctuaries. You didn't become bitter. You became wiser, softer, more divine in your radiance. And now, you're no longer that version of yourself who waited by the window. You've stepped into your own life with grace and gratitude, and that is why this truth is arriving now. Because you are finally strong enough to hear it without letting it define you. This confession isn't asking you to go back. It is simply showing you how far you've come. The soul who once left you standing at the threshold of what could have been now realizes that you were the destination all along. And though their heart may long to revisit what they left behind, the angels want you to know that your peace must not be disturbed by someone else's awakening. You get to decide what this moment means. You get to hold the truth without giving up your power. Because you, dear child, are no longer someone waiting for love to arrive. You are someone who has become the very embodiment of love itself. And whether this soul returns with open hands or simply sends their truth out into the universe with no expectation, your worth does not shift. Your light does not flicker. Your spirit does not bend. You remain the home they remember not because of longing, but because your energy has always been unforgettable. So what do you do now, precious one, now that heaven has revealed their hidden truth? You rest. You breathe. You allow yourself to feel without forcing answers. You remember that this is not the beginning of a fairy tale. It is the unveiling of a sacred chapter, one written in your honor. And whether or not the road between your souls reconnects, you can know that your love reached them. It changed them. It built something inside them that only now, after all this time, they've begun to understand. You gave them more than moments, you gave them meaning. And heaven holds every memory you shared as sacred, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. So let their confession be the melody to your strength. Let it be the echo of what your soul always knew but never demanded. Let it rise like incense to the sky, not to bring back what was lost, but to bless what has been found. You are not where they left you. You are where your angels have carried you. And now, as the past whispers one final truth, you get to decide what love looks like in your next chapter, because your joy is no longer dependent on who returns. It is rooted in the unshakable truth that you are and always have been the home someone longed for and finally realized they had once been blessed to find. Dear child, heaven has waited for this moment to be unveiled, not in thunder, not in chaos, but in the tender hush that follows a long season of silence. For so long, you felt as though your love had gone unnoticed, as though your offerings were left on a table that no one sat at anymore. You gave from your heart, you opened your spirit, and you waited, not because you were desperate, but because you believed in the depth of connection that existed between your soul and theirs. But they, beloved, were not ready. They looked at what you offered and could not fully receive it, not because it wasn't beautiful, but because they had not yet learned how to value what arrives gently, silently, humbly. They were searching for something loud, something distracting, something that would stir their restlessness rather than calm their spirit. And in doing so, they turned away from the one thing that held the power to heal them, your love. They thought you had already moved on, that perhaps your heart had closed its doors, that the season of longing had passed. But the angels saw what they did not. They saw how you still whispered their name in your prayers. They saw how every time you thought of them, it wasn't bitterness that bloomed, but a soft ache, a wondering if they were okay, if they remembered, if they still felt the tether between your hearts. And last night, dear child, something shifted. The truth they have been holding back, burying beneath the distractions of daily life, finally spilled out. Maybe not to you directly, but to the heavens, to their own heart, to the stillness of the night that finally made them feel again. They spoke the truth they could no longer silence, that they have always missed you, that they regret not seeing you clearly, that your love was a gift they pushed aside while looking for things that never truly mattered. And now, when they close their eyes, they don't see the excitement of newness or the thrill of momentary affection. They see you. They see the one who saw through them, the one who loved them even when they were unlovable, the one who stayed long enough to leave an imprint they couldn't erase. But, oh sweet child, this realization did not come easily. It came through time, through failures, through days that felt hollow even when they were surrounded by noise. It came through relationships that lacked depth, through laughter that didn't reach their soul, through countless moments of pretending they were fine when all they wanted was to feel what they felt with you again. They've spent years trying to silence a memory that only grew louder with time, and now that they've finally admitted the truth, that you were the calm they didn't know they needed, they are overwhelmed, because they believe it might be too late. They fear that your heart, once so open and soft, may have closed its doors forever. They wonder if you've moved on, if you've healed, if someone else now receives the love they once took for granted. And now, dear child, heaven places this moment in your hands. You are not the same person they left. You are wiser now, stronger, softer in the right ways, firmer in the ones that matter. You no longer pour from an empty cup. You no longer wait for someone to choose you in order to feel worthy. You have remembered who you are. You have rebuilt your heart, not around fear but around faith. And so this truth, their confession, is not meant to pull you back into the past. It is meant to honor you, to show you how deeply your love has shaped a soul, even in your absence, to remind you that nothing you gave was wasted. Not a single word, not a single tear, not a single late-night prayer. Everything you poured out came back in time, not to reward you, but to reflect you. You were the one who loved purely, and now the heavens are showing you just how sacred that love was. So what will you do now, precious soul? The person who once ignored the divine gift in front of them now sees clearly. But clarity does not mean entitlement. They do not get to walk back in simply because they miss you. This is your moment. This is your light. And the angels urge you to ask yourself, what does your heart truly desire? If it longs to open again, let it be from strength, not from longing. Let it be because they come with sincerity, consistency, humility. Let it be because their presence brings peace, not confusion. And if your heart no longer wishes to return to that place, that too is sacred. That too is healing. That too is divine. Because you, dear child, have never needed validation to be valuable. You have never needed to be seen to be radiant. You were always the one who offered love in its highest form, even when no one clapped for it. And now, as heaven reveals what was once hidden, you are invited to rest, not to rush, not to decide, simply to rest, to receive, to honor what you once felt without losing who you've become. You are the answered prayer someone didn't know they were whispering, and that truth will remain, whether you reunite or not. So breathe, dear child. Let this angel message sink into your soul like warm sunlight after a long winter. You were never overlooked by the divine. You were planted in time, and now you are blooming in truth. Let this confession come as a reminder of how powerful your love is. Let it awaken only what feels safe and sacred in your heart. And most of all, remember, you are loved, you are seen, you are whole. And no cup you ever poured has gone unnoticed. Heaven has gathered every drop, and now your own cup will overflow. In the time to come, love will meet you, not as something that takes, but as something that honors. Not as a question, but as a blessing. And when it does, dear child, you will know that all of it, the silence, the sorrow, the waiting, was leading you here, to clarity, to peace, to yourself. Type Amen if you trust in God. Dear friend, if today's message brought even a moment of peace to your heart, may its quiet light continue to walk beside you, whispering softly that you are never truly alone. This channel is currently moving through a season of financial difficulty, and if your heart feels gently led to support us, even the smallest gesture, like a super thanks, can make a meaningful difference. Your kindness helps us continue sharing these sacred messages with souls still searching for healing, hope, and divine comfort. But please hold this truth close. There is absolutely no pressure. If now isn't the right time to give, your presence here, your prayers, and your open, listening heart are already a precious gift. You are seen. You are valued. You are deeply, unconditionally cherished. Thank you for continuing to walk this sacred path with such trust, tenderness, and faith. May the angels remain near, guiding your every step, protecting your peace, and wrapping your soul in their radiant, everlasting light.